So thank you very much for inviting me to come and talk today. I really appreciate it. I was and am a lecturer still at the University of Hertfordshire, but I did it for 12 years full-time. So I wrote 2D, 3D games art and visual effects degrees, 2 masters, and supervised a couple of PhDs. I didn't do one. They're way too difficult. It's much better to be able to look after the... This is a really weird microphone. Is it okay? Is it going to go crazy?
No.
Okay, we'll just see what happens. Let's go rogue. We've only got a short time anyway. So I was kindly asked to open this morning. You're going to hear quite a lot from me because I'm going to host the next kind of panel in a moment. But kind of to set the scene about where we are with kind of XR and immersive technology and virtual reality specifically. I was actually here about a month ago doing something ridiculous. We did a mixed reality fashion show. So we took one of the amazing fashion designers and students, and I did, through mixed reality, this crazy kind of world coming to life above the curation of this guy's performance, and got famous people to wear headsets, which makes PR people very happy. But this is like a little short of what we did. Who doesn't like skulls and tigers and lightning and anything in between? It was a live event, obviously, so we had to run it once. 700 people turned up, which made it quite difficult for networking and Wi-Fi hotspots, but we made it work. And the whole premise was using mixed reality glasses, which are AR glasses that you wear, so the Magic Leap ones. We can create any universe we want, and it feels like it's really there. So unbounded by physics. So what if we could take the designs off the clothing and make it appear in the environment around you? And the logical step is, what if we could overlay those designs that are actually over the top of your clothes as you're walking around? And I'm going to kind of finish off on that. So I've only started just recently speaking about this. I think I've only just come out the other side. But I grew up very alternative. I actually grew up in one of those buses down there until I was 10 years old. I grew up as part of the kind of New Age traveller groups in the 1980s, which is incredibly difficult to do because it's not California, it's not warm, and Margaret Thatcher really didn't like us. And that's my little brother. He's actually head of technology for us at the moment, and I've been carrying him ever since. I know, I had to. This was school. That's Uncle Benji, the clown, who's not my uncle at all. I'm there in the middle with an amazing mullet. And this girl down here was head of marketing for Paramount, and this was somewhere in the middle of Dartmoor. That was school. This was our playground, Glastonbury. The last time there was a festival at Stonehenge, and that's my uncle's punk wedding, which is hilarious. I might hold this. And then I went, obviously, fast forward, rebelled against alternative hippie upbringing, and went straight. No drink, no drugs, no rock and roll. Don't want any of your kind of stuff. And then realized that that was a mistake because it's actually quite a nice thing. And my 20s was a blur. But I then ended up being a lecturer in digital animation, of course, because that's what all hippies do. And then at the end of that, I thought I'd start a company because that can't be that difficult. I was wrong. It's very hard. And we had our 8th birthday last weekend. So I've been running Rewind for 8 years, and I have this lovely bunch of people that I work with. And we apply ourselves, we make awesome things. Often it looks a lot like software, but it could be called experiences, could be called content, but it's the application of creative technology to tell stories, really. And I've been very lucky that over the few years, as we heard about a moment ago, so Rewind's done quite well. We've got lots of awards, which people seem to like. I'm helping BAFTA kind of explore where immersive fits within its current structure. And then also Immerse UK, if you haven't joined, you really should. It's a free body to kind of support the wider immersive industries. And so I work in VR, AR, MR, any R you want to apply to it, and beyond into things people don't have words for yet. But it often feels like a piece of content and a piece of something that someone will either view in a headset or view on a screen or kind of explore in themselves. So I'll show you kind of 60 seconds of what we're about. and that was a man doing a backflip. Can I swap to this one? It's on. It's just much better. The other one was really creepy. I could hear myself in my... so that was a man doing a backflip over a Formula E car, shot in Mexico for various reasons. But the truth of it, sort of things we do, so Silicon Valley, big HBO show, we made it so you could explore their universe and be part of their world. We helped launch a Red Bull Air Race mixed reality thing, so during the sport, through a headset, you can see all the other planes kind of racing around. We helped... we did a lot of work with Ghost in the Shell, and also the bottom corner, we were the company behind the Apprentice virtual reality episodes. So they brought their 2 teams to us, and we had to make whatever stupid ideas they came up with in 24 hours, and then launch them at Comic-Con like they were real games. Midway through the afternoon, I went to the producers and I said, "You do know these are terrible, right? And the teams are going to kind of explode." And the guy looked at me and went, "I know, it's brilliant." Because it's reality TV. Okay, fine. But it was an experience itself, and actually we pitted half the office against the other half of the office, and it went down quite well. I can talk about that later. So the premise for us is that at the moment, we're trying to define the lexicon to talk about the type of content we create. And we don't have all the words yet, and people keep bringing up new acronyms and new ways to explain where we sit. The truth of it is that XR at the moment is kind of nestling in as the one to define everything. Over the top, it could be called immersive. At some point, we'll stop saying the word digital because everything is digital. But at one end, we have physical reality, or I like RR, so real reality. And at the other end, we've got digital reality, purely synthetic. Everything is made up. But it's a gradient that runs from one end to the other. There's every possible thing in between. And where you bump into is things, so in AR's first thing, you have something like Pokemon Go, where you have something you held, which is a magic window to go into another world. You then step into things where you've got head-mounted AR, so things exist persistently. Then you have places which are more virtual, but you can still touch things, like the Void. So put a headset on, and then you can reach out and something's there. And then you have purely virtual, where everything is synthetically constructed. The nice thing about this stuff, though, I think, is something special, is that it's new. It kind of connects us with technology like we've never have done before. And it goes back to this. We've been telling stories around campfires for a very, very, very long time. But every type of medium we've had since that point has had to use our imagination to build an image in our mind for us to see it. So I tell you a story, you can imagine what I'm telling you. You shut your eyes, maybe you see it a little better. Then we thought we'd paint on the cave wall to show these little stick men running after deer and bison, and that helped us visualize what we're seeing, and that kind of went to theater and went to paintings and went to books and went to movies. But all of it is having to have us have a suspension of disbelief to believe what we're seeing is real. Whereas if I put a VR headset on you, you see it. You're there. You're absolutely present. You believe what you're seeing is a reality. And that's absolutely different to everything we've had before. The closest we have is immersive theater. We go somewhere, we dress it all up, we have actors with you, and they make you believe that it's real. But even that doesn't have the power of what we can do with virtual reality. So storytelling is great. I've been talking about story living quite a lot. And if you're a geek, kind of the holodeck, we can step into another world and another reality. Story living may stick or might not. We'll see where it goes. And for me, one of the big ones we bumped into, so we created this thing for the BBC maybe 3 years ago now. The idea of what could you do if you took the idea of going to space and use virtual reality to make you believe you're an astronaut. So we took a nuts and bolts version, perfect version of the ISS, and we crafted a story around you being one of the astronauts to go and climb on the outside of the space station to do one of the missions. And some jeopardy happens and you have to make your way back. But we did a couple of clever things where we put you at the center of the story, and we kind of put an elastic band around the end and the start, and we set you on a path. And as far as you try a way to get away from the story kind of knocks you back into shape. So you have the illusion of freedom, you have the illusion of presence that you're there, but actually we still give you key story beats. And everyone starts the story in the same place and ends the story in the same place. But how you get there, the journey is slightly different. And that's the thing that people really, really love. I was incredibly proud to show it to Tim Peake and also Nicole Stutt, both real astronauts. That's a 12-year-old version of me standing next to her and being very, very happy. But we thought we did a pretty good job. I didn't expect astronauts to really pick it apart. But she told us that it's as close to the real thing as you can get. She was up there, she did the mission. She complained that a couple of things we'd kind of taken artistic license with. So this arm that moves you from one end of the station to the other. She said, you've kind of got it on kind of fast mode, haven't you? And I was like, what do you mean? She said, it takes half an hour, you've got it in 3 minutes. And I said, what do you mean? So I did this. It takes a long time. The other thing she complained about is this bit where we spin you off the space station and we make you feel a little unqueasy. Now in VR, I know VR made you all feel sick at some point. We don't do that anymore as an industry. We could if we want to, but it was bad technology and we didn't really know what we were doing when we were making these experiences. In this, we did it on purpose because it was part of the medium. We can make you feel off axis. So we span you for about 11 to 12 seconds, which is enough to put everyone a little off, but not to give you motion sickness. And she said, well, that doesn't happen. You just keep spinning. You keep spinning and spinning and spinning until you throw up or black out or you kind of make your way back. And I said, well, this is a piece of entertainment. She said, can you put an astronaut mode in it for me? I said, sure, we can do that. Asked the BBC if it's okay. We had to put a bunch of legalese like, are you sure this will make you feel sick? Yes. Are you sure astronauts are professionals? Yes. And you had to 2, 3, or 4. Then you're allowed to have this mode, which is quite unpleasant. It's free. It's on every platform. Have a go with it. Like I said, it's 3 years old. We're very proud. But she said she never thought she'd go back to space. And this made her feel, this is actually her floating around. And that was amazing for us, that using this technology, that we made someone who's really been there feel like she was in space, which means everybody else putting the headset on has a glimpse of what it's like to be present somewhere else in the universe and do something magical. We all know it has amazing impact, and it can impact people's behavior and change people's points of view. There's a very interesting one where VR experience where you're asked to chop down the rainforest, basically, by hand. And you're either with an axe or a chainsaw felling the rainforest. And then people are asked, post it, how do they feel about the impact that they're having on their use of their non-recycling use, and will that impact how they change their mind? And it's a 68 to 70% change of their point of view by using this headset. It creates real memories. They did a test on a bunch of school kids. They took some kids to see whales in an aquarium, and then they showed a bunch of another control group virtual reality whales, and then asked them a month later what they thought of the whales and did they see them. And the kids had built real memories from the virtual reality experience and remember seeing whales, not that they remember seeing a virtual reality version of them. The other lovely thing about it is people are, other than presence, but people are 100% focused and engaged. Our time is continuously pulled in all directions. You all have a phone in front of you, some of them still playing with it. And we're being distracted by other things every minute of every day. When you have a VR headset on, you can't. You've got noise-cancelling headphones, you're present in a moment, and you're enjoying it, unless you have some other things to pull you out of it. At some point, there'll be a virtual mobile phone in the VR experience to distract you, I'm sure. And people are really into it. Spielberg obviously did Ready Player One, and he thinks it's amazing that it's going to be able to pull people and show people places they'll never get to go to. Admittedly, he's also one of the biggest people who are slating virtual reality continuously, but we'll see. Money is the problem at the moment, or the challenge. If you're American, Americans can't say the word problem. They've had to learn to say challenge or opportunity for success. Everybody's moving into the space. Everyone's looking at it, know it's coming. We are in the depths of a winter of virtual reality, which is all the hype turned up, all the hype money turned up. Everybody had to go for basically for free, and then no consumers arrived. And everyone went, oh, how do I make a business model work about content when there's no one there to watch it? So you either spend less because there's less people to see it, or you understand that what you're creating is R&D as it builds. And it's building slowly, slowly, slowly. There still are lots of graphs like this, which go way up on the left-hand side, which everyone likes. But we're a little way off. One of the reports that came out of Immerse was looking at how the interest of different verticals. So from all the training and simulation people, they said 63% said they are interested and or wanting to apply virtual reality in their industry. Then product design, collaborative working, analysis, marketing, research. And so there's a huge upswell using virtual reality technologies and finding use cases for it. So much so that UK government put £33 million down, which is very kind of them, to an ISCF fund for something they called Audience of the Future. They've announced 4 large demonstrators of £4 million each, and a whole plethora of other smaller grants, and including they've just set up a new school called the Story Futures Academy, which is £10 million over the next 2.5 years to support the retraining and upskilling of people in virtual reality. Run out of Royal Holloway. So, where is the money? Where is the money? There are lots of people creating content. There are big platforms pushing into it. Sky's done a huge amount of work with their Sky VR platform, and they're experimenting, creating some amazing pieces of content. And the entertainment industry is moving in the right direction. Back end of 2017, so I grabbed these numbers from the back end of last year, it was up about 80%. One of the areas which is growing fast is LBE, so location-based entertainment. That's like an arcade or somewhere you go to try something out, or a theme park. And the amount of investment going on that is actually increasing far faster than consumers. And that's because the business model works. We can put an installation somewhere in London, we can charge everyone £10, £20 a go, and for one piece of content with the right amount of throughput, you can get some money back from the money you put in, and so people are putting money down on that sort of stuff. And that looks and feels a lot like a gallery, I was thinking. So the idea of going somewhere and experiencing something and coming out of it. The other thing about it is that the hardware isn't owned by you and I, it's owned by someone else. So we may pay more money to go and experience it, but we know the quality is going to be very good. And it's a good try before we buy. But if we do want to buy, this is going to be pretty interesting. The Oculus Go at the top was about $200, and the Oculus Quest, which is going to come out this summer, is going to be about $400 or £400. But it's completely wireless, completely has hands, completely wireless, doesn't need a phone, just works straight out the box. And it's pretty powerful. It's going to be one of the kind of sea change moments we believe in, kind of the consumer-driven side of it, because that's acceptable. That's a kind of console price that you could buy something. And seeming it has this whole world the other side of it, we think it's going to actually really begin to move consumers forward. Industry bodies, everybody's kind of paying attention. If you saw the Oscars, gave out a special Academy Award in 1996, and they haven't given one until last year when they gave one to Carne Arena. Carne Arena is an LBE, so it's an installation where you put a backpack on and you're put into a large area around about the size of this room with sand all on the floor. And you're asked to explore this high moment of drama of this group of migrants trying to get across the Mexican border into the US. But you're absolutely there. It's incredibly high quality, so they use volumetric capture, which is kind of 3D scanning of people. And you're asked to be part of this moment, which gets quite intense. And it doesn't kind of say which side of the fence literally is right or wrong, but it allows you to witness it and be present in something which most of us, and hopefully none of us, will have to kind of go through. But the Academy, the Oscars, believe that this technology is as important as when we went to kind of CGI animation in 1996. And they haven't seen something as big as that. Emmys make lots and lots of award nominations, including we got one this year. We're very proud. NASA beat us. Fair enough. For our Silicon Valley work. And BAFTA, obviously, we're moving forward. We did a showcase last year and the year before where we collected and curated 30 to 40 pieces of work that we believe is important for the BAFTA membership and also everybody else to see. It's not an awards. It's nothing else other than a curated list of interesting things. And that grouping, collecting it, was difficult. And putting it onto all the hardware that it came on was difficult. And finding a location to run it was also difficult. Digital Catapult very kindly hosted it last year and the year before, which meant there was a place to go to try the hardware, to see the quality. And one of the most important things was having people with those people to talk them through what they're about to see, because most of it wasn't going and seeing a piece of artwork or medium that they understood. It was brand new. Half of them had never put a headset on in their life. And so curating and understanding that is difficult. Just as we get used to virtual reality, though, AR and MR is turning up. So augmented reality through a device, like a little portal into another world, is pretty interesting. We can hold it up, and it's like having real-time visual effects. And there's nothing there, but I can see something through here. And everybody has a portal to that world in our pocket, which is pretty cool. Most of us bumped into it through the Pokemon Go kind of craze, which some in my office are still playing. I see them running out into the street to catch or whatever as it runs past. And they're about to make so much more money because they're bringing Harry Potter to AR. So in our worlds will be dragons and little monsters, and you'll be a wizard, and we'll fight each other on the street, and Dobby will be living in my house, smashing up my plates, and he'll live like he's really there, and every time I'll get home, I'll have to kind of pet him on the head. But with this upswell of what AR is, it's bringing in a persistent digital universe, which is always there, that we can't see. I think it's pretty interesting that kids can see this imaginary world just by shutting their eyes or just pretending. But as adults, we begin to not be able to imagine things so well. But through AR, we can put that magical universe back in. And we end up in mixed reality, which is something very, very dear to my heart. Something that blew me away was 2 years ago at a League of Legends tournament. And League of Legends is an e-sport. This is a stadia out in Asia with 80,000 people watching an e-sport. And what they did is they put a digital character into the space to fly around, swoop, and land on the stage. Fireworks and pop music. But the principle being that there is a digital character that could not exist in any other way, living and existing in that space physically and flying around. The only cameras that could see it were the TV cameras. The people in the audience couldn't, but at some point they'll be able to hold this up and see that same character flying around and living like it's really there. And then beyond that, when we put on these sets of glasses, it'll be there physically. Whether we need to be there physically is a whole nother question. I could be anywhere in the world and teleport and transport myself to the same environment. This year's was even better. I just love it. They did a whole digital pop band. Watch the whole thing if you like. The principle being that was a year. So a year went from a low polygon dragon to an entire pop band, completely synthetic digital. Now, they're actually in the game. So in the game, there was this virtual pop band, and they brought them into the real world. We are so close to this mixed reality future that it's what's the right word? It's scaring me, I think is the right way of saying it, that how blindly we're kind of moving forward into a place where suddenly our mix between our digital selves and our physical selves are going to be all day, every day. Magic Leap announced themselves last summer. You can buy a headset. It's the one we used in the fashion show here. HoloLens 2 was announced last week. Those are the two devices which people can get their hands on. And they're basically a big pair of glasses which just allows us to do AR, overlaid in real time. And it puts our understanding of what the physical and the digital is together in a way we've never done before. Lots of people are talking about I can design my car, my furniture, and everything else in that sort of place. But the actual reality of it is it's going to change everything that we do. So this was a promotional video that Microsoft did a couple of years ago to show, in fact, this was 4 years ago. And I saw this and went, well, this is all visual effects. I could do this. Must be fake. Went to Seattle, tried every single experience in this presentation, and they all worked. Obviously, a little bit of a smaller field of view back then, but the principle being that if you have digital assets and digital objects, if you can geo-lock them so they're locked into place, they're going to always be there. And the amazing thing is that after using it for a small period of time, I remember in my home now that there's a Netflix TV on my downstairs living room of 105 inches, which I could never afford, but in mixed reality I can. There's a cookery book in my kitchen, and there's a galaxy floating in my back bedroom, because I was exploring the universe. But I remember the galaxy being there like it's really there, and like the cookery book's really there where I left it. And the amazing thing is that without the headset, it's not. And as soon as I put it on, it knows where I am, what I was looking at, and puts everything back there. So it's exactly where it was. If you go back to the very first thing, the very first thing you see, just this one simple thing. So a screen on a surface of any size, of any resolution, as many as we want. That's going to change everything about TV manufacturers. So LG, Samsung, you pick a manufacturer, are not going to sell us a black box that sits in our home anymore. They're going to have to sell us a pair of these glasses because that can put everything into any space at any time. Magic Leap talk about the magic verse. They love putting the word magic into it. But really, they're talking about layers, and they're talking about applications. And so with these glasses that I wear all day, every day, which are going to get as small as these at some point, we can put in anything from an entertainment layer. So as we were doing about Harry Potter and Dobby, they're really there, and I'm running around the streets. Or it could be health and fitness, or it could be wayfinding, get myself around town. Or it could be conferences. So I tap on an app, and now I see you, and I'm actually back in my office somewhere else. And that layering and that applications is the thing why Magic Leap has got so excited. It is also why these guys have been making animated poos, which still upset me. But the truth of it being, if you follow that, I don't have any NDAs with Apple, I'm just imagining what could happen. But if you follow the patents, and you imagine this device has everything in it, all the sensors, all the kind of facial tracking, all the depths, all the power, that in some point we're going to end up at a place like this. So I keep saying the mobile phone's dead. It doesn't even know it yet. But why do you want a foldable screen, for Pete's sake? Why, when a screen can be tracked and placed onto any object in any way you like? So this is a demo by a company called Leap Motion. But how a user interface might work with a virtualized screen. Well, any size you like, really. And then why would you need a desktop? Why do you need a laptop, in fact? Why do you need to buy any of that sort of stuff when all you just need is some sort of input? Some of us might like clunky physical keyboards to tap into, but a virtualized desktop screen can be there. And this is all happening right now around us, quietly, quickly, and far faster than we think. When it comes to creating all this stuff, I think there's some very big questions to ask, and we'll talk about it in the panel. But one of the ones I think is really interesting is where the digital value comes in these objects. I know I shouldn't mention blockchain because it's another lingo bingo. But the truth of it being, there's one of these beautiful pieces of artwork in the world, and most people see it like this. Behind glass wall, it's held back with 1,000 other tourists, and you're not really looking at it. And it's so valuable that we can't put a price on it. So it's priceless. So when it comes down to, what if I could make a perfect 3D scan digital clone of that asset, which we can do. We can scan it to the sub-millimeter, and I can make one in virtual reality in a VR gallery. Or actually better, I could have it as an AR gallery. So in my headset at home, I've got my cookery book, my TV, I've got my Picasso, I've got all the bits of artwork around me that I want to see it. And I've got a Mona Lisa right here. But if anyone could have a Mona Lisa, that kind of devalues what we consider artwork in different ways. So with blockchain or with something else, we could actually have a run. We could have a run of 100 or 1,000, and those digital assets then become valuable again. And that is what a lot of society is basically built on. Our whole idea of what something value is scarcity. And in digital, you can clone it 100% perfectly for free. We need a way of making that other universe which is about to come have a value in. And then it also about how do we curate it. We used to curate artwork and virtualize physical artwork because there weren't that many people making beautiful things. Most of us were busy trying to stay alive, and create, do some farming, keep the fire running, and keep everybody alive. But when it comes down to art, now everyone's an artist. In fact, most of YouTube is exactly what it is: user-generated crap. There are millions of hours of awful art. Some people might like the very niches of it. But to ask a university to choose what is the right art to bring in, when any of us can make virtual reality content at the moment, is an incredibly hard thing to do. Let alone the fact that every single device we go on is changing. So you need all the physical hardware, which is far more expensive as well. And then how do you see it and curate it? So I think it's a hard task to ask, and I'm really proud to come and talk to you today a little bit about what the state of the union is at the moment, the universe is, and then also the difficult task of how we take virtual reality into being curated and looked after for hopefully all time. Thank you very much. I do have time for questions if you like, but I'm also happy to just do the panel.
Well, let's see if anybody's got a burning question that they would like to ask Sol now. I'll ask that again. So there are a couple of hands up. We'll just have a few quick questions, and then we've got a panel discussion that Sol is going to be chairing. So there'll be much more time at the end of that for having some really rich Q&A. Thank you very much, William.
Hi. A question is about empathy. And I'm wondering if your company's ever done experiments where users are able to interact with each other in virtual environments as avatars or digital presences or whatever. And the question really comes from that Mexico border piece, which I find very morally dubious.
Yes. People have called virtual reality the empathy machine, which I think is more of a marketing thing than anything else. But it's about the presence thing. It's about... So at the start, we were talking about being told a story. And being told a story, you have to imagine it. And some of us are more empathetic, and some of us have more kind of emotional intelligence than others. And we can put ourselves into someone else's shoes and think how they may be feeling. Through virtual reality, we're taking that one step closer, where we're trying to put you in to be present in that moment. Obviously, we're not. This is a digital representation. And at this moment, the quality of what we're seeing is, like you say, difficult to get right. But the power of that empathy is about trying to change people's points of view, trying to make people imagine what it is to be somewhere else. Now, if you're using it for entertainment, it's a pretty interesting space. So what's it like to be a space marine running around killing aliens? We can imagine that's a fictional universe, probably. If we're standing on the border and we're being asked to be part of a moment which was completely fictionalized, that's one thing. If it was actually capturing that moment, so we're taking a 360 video camera and we're taking you to the Paris kind of yellow vests protests, and you get to be there and be part of it. Now, you can't influence it. You're not going to change it. But to witness it from the point of view, which isn't a curated view in a camera or in an edit, I think is pretty interesting. Down the front. Oh, you missed him. We'll come back.
You said something about children's memory, interacting with whales, but first visually and then different group. Could you say a little bit more about that? And was it the immersion, the interactivity? What helped extend their memory?
It's the way the memories are built. It's something we have to be careful about. I've just had twins, you said at the start, so they're 6 months old, little identical boys, so they're clones. And I thought for a little bit about putting one in virtual reality for his entire life, like a little bit of A/B testing. And my wife wasn't up for it, but we'll see. It's an interesting, there's a whole bunch of stuff there. But it's the way the memories are built. So the same as in any type of education, if you are being told something, it's very different to if you're actually if you're doing the practice, if you're actually being part of and present. And the virtual reality does that. It allows you to be present and believe what you're seeing is real, and it builds the same memories and the neural pathways in the same way as if you were physically there. Now, the difference is that a friend of mine was talking about putting people under 13-year-olds, under 13 years of age, into virtual reality. And at the moment, all the headset manufacturers say it's a no-no for under 13. The main reason for that is they are worried about how the optics are working because the headsets are set up for finished heads. If they're a little bit closer, you're actually going to get eye strain, and if eye strain, is that bad for the children? There has not been enough research into the psychological impact of what the virtual reality stuff is. And a good friend of mine was on a panel, and someone said, oh, you know, we should be careful. Children should never be in virtual reality because, you know, it can warp and distort their minds. And he said, well, I put my 6-year-old son in a virtual reality thing called The Deep, and he was underwater. And he said, what's it like? Oh, I'm great. I'm at the bottom of the ocean, Dad. I can see fishes and sharks and everything. He says, how come you're breathing? He said, well, because it's virtual reality, Dad. Like, they're not stupid. Like, there is a whole bunch, there's always the argument of, you know, in violence in games, will it kind of pervade out of video games and into our society? And every study says no. Admittedly, there are weird, warped, twisted people where it will have an impact on them. But so will reading books, and so will having a chat with your friends down the pub, because those people are weird and warped and distorted. Most of us know where the boundaries are between the real and the physical. Virtual reality, though, at some point will be so realistic that we will believe it and exist in it in the same way that we live and exist in our real world. And that's the bit where we need to be careful. I think is the best way of saying it.
Except we have interactivity with the virtual that we don't.
Yes, we have the options to have interactivity, and also we don't have any borders. As this virtual universe has no landmass at the moment, it has no reason, it has no scarcity. It can have an infinite size, and we can have as many people as we want in it. I talked to a friend of mine about going into my ground floor flat, which is underground and has, you know, crappy tiny bedrooms, and I put a headset on and suddenly I'm on the penthouse and I've got a beautiful view and everything's lovely and I can wander around. And that will be a VR version of a home that I might aspire to. Or I'm sitting on a plane and I sit in economy, but I have virtual first class in a headset. Put it on, wow, it's a lovely view. And look at the size of my TV. And I'm actually sat in the back. And that can happen now with any of those headsets. You can sit and feel like you're sitting in an IMAX theater watching a huge screen and not be anywhere different. One of the plane manufacturers is going to do that pretty soon. Time for one more question?
Yeah, let's have Bill in the front row.
Just here.
Hello there. You mentioned a couple of times about access, those sorts of issues. With telepresence, it's very exciting, whether everybody can visit a pop band from a distance. The value of that is to be discussed, right?
Yeah.
I think that possibly one of the bigger turning points was the Google Cardboard, because it made that sort of virtual experience much more affordable.
Yeah.
These sorts of frameworks just reinforce the problems we have in the real world. Does Rewind have intentions to try and look at ethical frameworks for distribution and access alongside the content creation? Can we tie that together with the value that is created through the works themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very tricky one to get right. Being privately owned and having no backers, you have to make commercial decisions all the time, and it makes things difficult. There's things that you want to do, and there's things that can't keep the lights on and keep everyone's wages being paid. But what we do is a lot of pro bono work. So we work with Great Ormond Street Hospital quite regularly, and we've done some virtual reality experiences for them. I went to them saying I wanted to do VR Make-A-Wish. Whatever the kid wanted to do and they can't physically do it, I can go and capture it. So if they want to fly in an RAF jet or they want to run with Usain Bolt, I can capture it and bring it back and put it in a headset. And they said actually what they needed was the people to understand how amazing the hospital is and be able to show the parents before they get there what it's like to walk into reception, how wonderful the staff are there. This is Penguin wards, and these are the doctors, and here's a child in a similar situation. Because actually that changes the anxiety levels of the children who are about to go to the hospital, and also the parents that are about to go, because it's the most stressful time in their entire lives. And so creating content for that sort of place is something very close to my heart. When it comes to ethical reasons and access, I think we have to be careful about the digital divide. So we have first and third world, but I think the idea of those that have these glasses of another universe and the people that don't are going to almost become a different species, because as I said, we're running into that space very, very quickly. And so we need to work out how we make that accessible to the world. There's a lot of companies out there trying to get to the next billion, they call it, or the next 2 billion, which is how we get digital tools and digital access and internet access out into those countries. But that is about trying to make a sub $50 mobile phone, not about taking this $4,000 headset and putting it to those people. So we're a long way off about getting that side, so that place right. But I can talk a lot more about that if you like later.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Can we have a huge round of applause for Saul? Because I don't know about blowing up cars, but he certainly blew my mind. And I can easily see that we're going to reach a point in my house where my other half, who works for Google and loves all of this stuff, is going to be sitting around with the wee specs on. And I will be the person desperately clinging to real reality, as you've decided to call it.